Thank you so much for joining this session in which I'll just scratch the surface of the metaverse and what it might mean for telecoms operators. That's better. Sorry, I couldn't resist getting an avatar in there, even if only briefly. So I'm Martin Scott, Principal Analyst at Analyst Mason, and I head up our video gaming and entertainment research. But on top of that, I also coordinate our thinking around the metaverse. What is it? What does it mean for telecoms operators? That's exactly what we'll explore today. Firstly, I'll explore how you might establish a framework for thinking about the metaverse. I'll give you a relatively simple definition and then we'll drill down into the complexity of what that means. The metaverse has three facets: the consumer side, the business led side, and the industrial metaverse. I'll talk you through some of our recent survey findings around consumers' relationship with an understanding of the metaverse and why we think the metaverse is important for telecoms operators to think about now. Then finally, we'll look a little at the opportunities that telecoms operators have in this space. What different roles can they play? And are they just relegated to being dumb pipes? So let's start with definitions. Part of the issue with the metaverse is definitional. Lots of different organizations are releasing forecasts for the size and the value of the metaverse. And the two main reasons that these numbers vary so wildly is because, firstly, it's a new market, and so there's lots of uncertainty. But secondly, we haven't agreed on a definition. Is there one metaverse or are there multiple metaverses? Now, I'd contend that there are three facets to the metaverse: the consumer-centric part, which primarily includes peer-to-peer interactions, social commerce, and also entertainment. Then there's the business-led part of the metaverse, where service industries sit. So that's B2C retail, education, health, so on. Finally, there's the industrial metaverse. That's something different. The same technologies and software will enable all three of these categories, but these first two categories are pretty much more closely aligned. They can exist in the same virtual space or on the same platform at the same time, whereas the industrial metaverse or metaverses is something different. So the metaverse, simply put, is the internet in 3D. What's vital from my point of view is that it isn't a closed system. By using standards, different parts of the metaverse are interconnected. They're nearly infinitely scalable, and content and assets are portable between different parts of the metaverse. Those are the things that make the metaverse uniquely different from the virtual worlds that we see and engage with today. And I think that also means that when we talk about the industrial metaverse, we're talking about something different. It's enabled by many of the same technologies, but it's fundamentally siloed into private networks. It fails that interconnectedness part of my definition of the metaverse. These other two categories, consumer centric and business led, can exist in the same space, the metaverse singular. Now, what role can operators play in the metaverse? This is a complex ecosystem, so we need to divide up the world into different roles and aspects. In a recent report of ours, Metaverse Strategies, Case Studies and Analysis, we divide the metaverse up into three super categories. The first is user facing. This includes end users and their digital life, the hardware that enables them to interact with the metaverse, the content that they consume, and the applications and payment systems through which they engage in commerce. The second is enablers. We use this term broadly so as to incorporate all elements that enable metaverse services to operate and users to interact. Connectivity, real-time communication, both within different points in the metaverse and from the metaverse out to the real world, for example, via AR, the APIs and standards and platforms that support and enable that activity. Finally, cloud infrastructure, the hardware and processing resources upon which the metaverse software and platforms run. To truly understand this, you need much more time than we have here, and the report sets this all out in a reasonable amount of detail. We'll come back to this framework wheel in due course, but for now, I want to look a little more at that user-facing aspect of the framework. What do consumers think about the metaverse? So every year, we survey around 20,000 consumers around the world about their telecoms, media, and tech habits. We were last live in the field in July and August 2022, and we asked consumers about their understanding of the metaverse. We asked them if they recognize the term metaverse, and if so, how familiar were they with it? 67% of adults had heard of the term. A little under half of adults, 47%, actually felt that they knew what the metaverse was. 10% said that they had an active interest in the metaverse. They know what it is and they have an active intention to use it, or they consider themselves to already be using a version of it, be that through playing things like Roblox or engaging with platforms such as Meta's Horizon. Let's compare that to a concept that is related to the metaverse but has a more established deployment: cloud gaming. Cloud gaming services are becoming more common, particularly those associated with major consoles, so Microsoft Xbox Cloud Gaming and Sony's PS Now. Concept awareness is only just ahead of the metaverse. 72% of consumers recognize the term cloud gaming. Similarly, concept familiarity was just ahead of the metaverse at 52% of consumers. Active interest was at 14%, and 6% of adults said that they were using the technology already. That's a monetized user base. My point here is that where we already are with the monetization of cloud gaming could potentially be where we are with the metaverse in the very near future. And if you ask the likes of McKinsey and Citigroup, it's going to accelerate extremely rapidly from there to a multi-billion-dollar industry. Let's look at this another way. Another reason why telecoms operators should be actively thinking about what the metaverse means to their customers right now. The chart I'm about to build shows, on average, how much consumers spend on fixed broadband services per month for different segments of the population. It's becoming reasonably well established that gamers are important to telecoms operators. They've adopted fiber and 5G earlier. They spend more. So we've conducted market segmentations looking at different types of gamers in the past and their telecoms and media spending habits. And I'll be updating that research later this year. It's really clear that hardcore gamers, so that's the 10 to 15% of adults that spend the most time gaming, that play more network demanding games and spend more on hardware, are also more valuable customers for telecoms providers. And we're seeing that in tariffs that are specifically being released that target gamers. If we look at the fixed spend of consumers that say they plan to use the metaverse and were actively interested, we can see that this group of consumers, about 10% of the adult population, are even higher spend than hardcore gamers on their fixed broadband connectivity. What's more, this is a slightly different group of consumers to hardcore gamers. There's about a one-third overlap between hardcore gamers and consumers interested in the metaverse. And that means that the majority of these two groups actually don't overlap, which means that we need to look separately at their wants, needs, expectations, and work out how they can be met. This group of consumers that are interested in the metaverse is important to telecoms operators because the applications that they want to use require a higher specification of connectivity, both to the handset or to the home, and then also within the home, and that's monetizable, we think. So what roles can operators play in this space? You recall that our framework wheel divided the ecosystem into 10 different elements. The top three areas where we see telecoms operators playing a really important role are as follows. Firstly, connectivity. As I just touched upon, this is a core competency for telecoms operators by definition, but there are opportunities here not just to sell higher bandwidth, lower latency connections. In-home connectivity is really important. To support the latency and jitter requirements for immersive applications, we need optimized home networks, more intelligence in the CPE, policy as a service, traffic management, even the containerization of apps in the router. We're talking to both operators and vendors about how to make that happen effectively at the moment. Secondly, contents, apps, and assets. Operators are already aggregators of entertainment experiences. They frequently offer pay TV services and other services like gaming alongside telecoms. Telecoms operators have relevant experience and established consumer relationships to extend their approach to metaverse contexts, positioning themselves as curators of experiences in the metaverse. Now, we've written a lot about SK Telecom in particular and how they're approaching this aspect of the metaverse, but other operators such as Telefonica and Orange are also becoming very active in this space. Finally, there's the computing capability that enables all of this. Edge computing capacity will be necessary in order to make metaverse experiences immersive and conducted in real time. Telecoms operators have established edge cloud computing capabilities to satisfy a number of other non-metaverse, particularly enterprise applications, and should investigate how their solutions might support both their own metaverse initiatives and those of other players. And that's a short run around the metaverse and all we have time for today. Now, we have a wealth of research in this area already published or in the pipeline, and we would love to talk to you about it further. So if you'd like to discuss any of these issues in more detail, do please get in touch. And thanks again for taking the time to watch this session.